Picture this. 500 Viking warriors make 50,000 Muslim defenders abandon fortresses they'd held for 200 years without firing a single arrow. Just the sound of their axes beating against shields was enough to empty entire cities. This isn't mythology. This is the forgotten campaign that nearly changed Mediterranean history forever. I'm talking about 1038, when the legendary Varangian Guard landed in Sicily and unleashed a campaign so terrifying that Arab chronicles still called their leader the Destroyer centuries later. By the end of this video, you'll discover how Harold Hardrada, the future King of Norway, earned his fortune in blood. You'll witness the shocking betrayal that snatched total victory from Byzantine hands, and you'll learn why disciplined Muslim forces who'd held Sicily for 2 centuries collapsed so quickly that fortified cities opened their gates without a fight. If you're fascinated by the forgotten battles where Vikings, Greeks, and Arabs clashed for Mediterranean supremacy, hit that like button and subscribe. Ring the notification bell, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see medieval warfare forever. Let me transport you to Sicily in 1036. For 2 centuries, the Calbid dynasty had ruled this jewel of the Mediterranean, but now their emirate was crumbling. African raiders were burning mosques and enslaving fellow Muslims. The island couldn't even defend its own harbors. You have to understand what Sicily meant to the medieval world. Whoever controls Sicily controls the Mediterranean. Its ports commanded every trade route between Europe, Africa, and the East. Its strategic position made it the key to naval supremacy. Enter our players. First, George Maniakes. They called him the Giant. Standing 6'6" in an age when most men barely reached 5.5 feet, this Byzantine general had never lost a battle. His tactical genius was matched only by his brutality. Then came Harold Hardrada, the Ruthless, a 23-year-old Norwegian prince in exile, serving in the Varangian Guard to earn his fortune. He needed gold, mountains of it, to reclaim his throne back home. Sicily would give him that gold, one bloody battle at a time. The desperate Muslim ruler made the mistake that would doom his people. Pressed by invaders and abandoned by Cairo, he sent ambassadors to Constantinople begging for military aid. He offered shared rule of Sicily if Byzantine forces would drive out the raiders. But here's where it gets insane. Emperor Michael IV saw opportunity. Why share Sicily when he could take it all? He ordered Maniakes to assemble an invasion force that wouldn't just repel the raiders, it would reconquer the entire island. The emirate that had invited Byzantine help had just signed its own death warrant. Maniakes assembled a weapon: 10,000 Byzantine regulars, heavy cavalry armored like moving fortresses, mounted archers and infantry trained in formations unchanged since ancient Rome. But the real terror? 500 Norse warriors, each carrying a Danish axe weighing 10 pounds with a blade that could split a man from crown to groin. These weren't ordinary Vikings. They were the cream of Scandinavian nobility, exiled princes seeking fortune in the emperor's service. Harold Hardrada commanded his own unit, hand-picked killers who'd followed him from the frozen fjords of Norway to the scorching sands of Syria.
Before a single ship sailed, Maniakes had already won his first victory through psychological warfare. Byzantine agents spread tales throughout Sicily. They spoke of Varangian atrocities, how they stacked heads in pyramids, how they fought on after taking mortal wounds, how they consumed the flesh of their enemies. Most were lies, but some were true, and the Muslim population couldn't tell the difference. September 10th, 1038. 300 ships appeared on the horizon in perfect formation. The first Varangian to set foot on Sicilian soil was Harold Hardrada himself. Legend says he kissed his axe and swore an oath. Before the next full moon, he would be rich enough to buy a crown or dead enough to feast in Valhalla. Day 1, the landing was unopposed. The Messina garrison had simply fled. Then came the first real test. 300 Varangians on foot encountered 2,000 Muslim cavalry, elite horsemen who'd never lost an engagement. The Muslims charged, confident in their numerical superiority. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration. The Norsemen formed their shield wall, an interlocking barrier of wood and iron that moved like a single organism. When the Muslim cavalry hit that wall, horses screamed and reared. Arabian horses, trained from birth for war, refused to charge the Varangian line. The Muslim commander, an Emirate champion who'd killed 17 men in single combat, rode forward to challenge the Norse leader. Harold stepped out from the shield wall alone. The duel lasted less than 10 seconds. One swing of Harold's axe removed the champion's head so cleanly that his body remained upright in the saddle for several heartbeats before toppling. What happened next would haunt Muslim commanders for generations. The entire cavalry force, 2,000 veteran horsemen, turned and fled without orders. They'd seen champions die before, but there was something about the casual efficiency of Harold's killing stroke, the way he'd shown no emotion, just returned to the line as if he'd swatted a fly. The survivors spread word. These weren't men, they were something else. For the next 10 days, Maniakes' army advanced at 20 miles per day through hostile territory. But it wasn't hostile anymore. Muslim fortresses that had been built to withstand year-long sieges surrendered without losing a single arrow. At the fortress of Rometta, the garrison had prepared boiling oil, stones, and arrows. They outnumbered the approaching Byzantines 3-1. Yet, when the Varangian Guard reached the gates and began their rhythmic axe beating against their shields, the defenders simply opened the gates and fled. They left behind full treasuries, intact weapons, even hot meals still on the tables. Maniakes refined his terror tactics with scientific precision. At each conquered town, Varangians would execute the garrison commander, always by beheading with a single axe stroke, always in the town square, always leaving one soldier alive to carry the news. The message never varied. Maniakes comes, the Varangians hunger. Resistance is death, but flight is permitted. This calculated mercy was more terrifying than wholesale slaughter. It gave defenders permission to abandon their posts while making resistance unthinkable.
Then came Syracuse. 15,000 defenders manning ancient Greek walls that had repelled Carthaginians, Romans, and Vandals across 2 millennia. The Muslim emir had pulled every available soldier behind these walls, believing here, finally, the Byzantine advance would shatter. But the Varangians requested something that shocked even Maniakes. Harold Hardrada wanted to attack at night, not with the army, but alone. 500 men against 15,000 behind impregnable walls. The audacity was breathtaking, but Maniakes had learned to trust Varangian instincts. As darkness fell, 500 Varangians moved towards Syracuse's walls in complete silence. They'd blackened their mail with soot, muffled their weapons with cloth. The moon was new, providing perfect darkness. Muslim sentries strained to see movement on the plains, expecting the Byzantine assault at dawn. They never looked down. In 30 minutes, 100 Norse warriors crouched on Syracuse's battlements like ravens waiting to feast. The signal wasn't a horn or shout. It was the sound of the first guard's death. Then hell erupted. Varangian war cries shattered the night. The psychological impact was instant and total. 20 minutes, that's all it took. 500 men had broken a defense that should have held for months. 15,000 defenders routed by 500 attackers, who suffered only 30 wounded, no dead. Dawn revealed a city in chaos. The palace fell before noon. Treasury vaults containing 2 million gold dinars, the accumulated wealth of 2 centuries, captured intact. The next 6 weeks saw systematic destruction of Muslim power. Town after town fell in a pattern that became grimly predictable. Byzantine forces approach, Muslim defenders flee, Varangians occupy without resistance. In 42 days, Byzantine forces conquered 47 fortified positions. Byzantine losses remained under 100. The Varangian Guard had lost only 6 men, all to accidents rather than enemy action. 3 months after landing, Maniakes controlled 3/4 of Sicily. The campaign that should have taken years was essentially complete. Harold and his Varangians had earned wealth beyond imagining. Each warrior's share of Syracuse's treasury alone equaled a lifetime's earnings. Victory was complete, or so it seemed, because 2,000 miles away in Constantinople, jealousy was about to destroy everything. A messenger ship arrived carrying imperial orders. Maniakes, planning the final assault that would complete his conquest, expected congratulations. Instead, he received chains. The charges were absurd: embezzlement, conspiracy, insubordination. The real crime? Success that made lesser men seem smaller. The emperor's brother-in-law, an admiral who'd never won a battle, had convinced the court that Maniakes was a traitor. Without Maniakes, the Byzantine advance didn't just stall, it reversed with stunning speed. The Lombard allies saw Byzantine weakness and simply rode away. The Varangians, who'd sworn oath to the emperor but not his incompetent relatives, assembled in Syracuse's main square. Harold's words dripped with prophetic accuracy. "We have given them back their island. Byzantine gold has bought Byzantine defeat." 500 Varangian axes struck shields in unison, not their war rhythm, but a funeral dirge. They were mourning Byzantine competence. Then they marched to the ships, taking their reputation with them. Within a month, coordinated Muslim attacks struck isolated Byzantine garrisons across the island. Every position Maniakes had taken in days fell back to Muslim control. The most successful reconquest in Byzantine history ended not with Muslim swords, but with Byzantine politics.
History has a sense of irony. Harold Hardrada took his Sicilian gold back to Norway, claimed the throne in 1047, and ruled for 20 years. But destiny had its own poetry. He died at Stamford Bridge in 1066, the last great Viking king falling to English axis. The gold he'd earned killing Muslims in Sicily paid for the army that died trying to conquer England. And Sicily? 23 years after Maniakes' arrest, Normans, descendants of Vikings themselves, landed at the exact spot where Byzantine forces had come ashore. They'd learned every lesson from the failed 1038 campaign. Where Byzantine politics had failed, Norman ambition succeeded. Sicily fell permanently to descendants of Vikings, just not the ones Maniakes had led. Consider what this means. 500 Vikings had indeed terrified an emirate, broken Muslim power, and nearly changed Mediterranean history. They'd proven that disciplined ferocity could overcome any odds, that psychological warfare could topple centuries-old powers. But they couldn't terrify Byzantine bureaucrats. They couldn't break palace jealousy. They couldn't overcome the empire's greatest enemy, itself. The axes that had split Muslim skulls couldn't cut through Byzantine red tape. How many organizations today defeat themselves through internal conflict? How many victories turn to ash because people can't bear their colleagues' success? If this story of Vikings, Greeks, and Arabs clashing for Mediterranean supremacy fascinated you, smash that subscribe button. We're diving deep into forgotten battles that shaped our world. Drop a comment telling me which historical campaign you want covered next, and check out the video popping up on your screen right now about the fall of Constantinople, where Byzantine politics finally caught up with Byzantine glory. The Golden Demons had their day, and for one brief, terrifying moment, they made an entire civilization tremble.